Anything I say, Al, is going to get me in trouble, but that is the first time she's covered both legs.
Griffith Joyner, but really being tested and across the line in 21.84. Pam Marshall was also...
For decades, whispers surrounded the life and death of Florence Griffith Joyner, the woman the world called Flojo. She wasn't just fast, she was lightning in human form. Her record-breaking sprints at the 1988 Olympics, her stunning fashion choices and her radiant personality made her an icon unlike any other. But behind the glamour, behind the fame, rumors haunted her legacy. Rumors that refused to fade even after her passing. From her sudden death at just 38 to the controversies about performance-enhancing drugs, the world demanded answers. Yet for years, one man stayed silent, her husband, Al Joyner. The Olympic champion who knew her better than anyone else. He protected her memory fiercely, refusing to let speculation tarnish her name. But now, at 64, Al Joyner has finally spoken, not out of anger, but out of love. What he revealed about Florence's health, her final days, and the truth behind the rumors has left fans in tears and silenced even her harshest critics. This isn't just a story about the fastest woman in history. It's about love, loss, and the lengths one man went to protect the woman he loved from a world that never truly understood her. Because for Al Joyner, Florence wasn't just a legend. She was his life. And the truth he's finally shared changes everything we thought we knew. Before the world knew her as Flojo, Florence Griffith Joyner was simply a determined girl from Los Angeles, with dreams too big for her surroundings. Born in 1959, she grew up in a working-class family where money was tight but ambition was limitless. Her mother, Florence Griffith, instilled in her children a sense of pride and purpose, while her father taught her the value of hard work, lessons that would one day make her an unstoppable force on the track. Even as a child, Florence stood out. Her teachers noticed her natural athleticism, her grace, and the almost fierce determination in her eyes. She joined local track teams, sprinting with the kind of passion that left everyone else in awe. Yet despite her obvious talent, the road to greatness wasn't easy. She had to balance school, training, and part-time jobs just to afford running shoes and travel expenses for competitions. By the time she reached the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, Florence was already a rising star. Under the guidance of legendary coaches, she honed her explosive starts and perfected her smooth, powerful stride. But what truly set her apart was her style: long, painted nails, bold, one-legged running suits, and a confidence that radiated beyond the finish line. Florence wasn't just winning races, she was changing how people saw women in sports. Her big breakthrough came in 1988 at the Seoul Olympics, where she shattered records that still stand to this day. With every race, she defied gravity and expectation, clocking time so fast that some believed they couldn't be real. But Florence never let the skeptics stop her. She smiled, posed for cameras, and embraced her fame with grace and humility. It was also during this golden period that her personal life blossomed. Her husband, Al Joyner, himself an Olympic champion, was her greatest supporter. The two became one of sport's most beloved couples, united by love, discipline, and an unshakable belief in each other. While the world saw Florence as a glamorous figure sprinting toward glory, Al saw something deeper. A woman driven by heart, faith, and a relentless will to prove that beauty and power could exist together. Yet beneath the glittering image, cracks began to form. The whispers started. Questions about how someone could run that fast, look that flawless, and stay that dominant. The rumors of performance-enhancing drugs grew louder, even though Florence passed every single test she ever took. Still, public's fascination with her brilliance began to mix with suspicion. Al Joyner watched it all unfold, knowing the toll it took on his wife. Florence had always been sensitive to criticism, even if she never showed it. Behind closed doors, she would sometimes cry, wondering why people couldn't simply celebrate her achievements without tearing her down. Al stood by her side, reassuring her that her truth would outlast any rumor. Together they tried to tune out the noise, focusing instead on family and the future. But Florence's story was far from over, and neither of them could have imagined the storm that was yet to come. As Florence Griffith Joyner's star continued to rise, so did the whispers surrounding her name. Every medal, every record-breaking run seemed to bring with it another round of accusations, ones she never deserved. People couldn't accept that a woman could be both elegant and extraordinarily fast without something unnatural behind it. And although Florence consistently tested clean, the rumors refused to fade away. For her husband, Al Joyner, it was heartbreaking to watch. He knew her routines, her discipline, and her sacrifices better than anyone. Every morning, Florence trained, relentlessly, pushing her body to limits most athletes couldn't imagine. Her workouts were grueling: sprints, strength conditioning, and endless drills, followed by hours of recovery and careful nutrition. She lived clean, ate healthy, and treated her body like the temple it was. Yet the critics painted her as something else entirely. Newspapers hinted at performance enhancement. Television pundits questioned the authenticity of her speed. And even some fellow athletes, those who had once admired her, began to distance themselves, unwilling to be caught in the media storm surrounding her success. Florence fought back in her own way, with grace. She smiled during interviews, insisting that her hard work and faith were her only secret. Still, behind the confident facade, the pressure began to weigh on her. Al could see it in her eyes, the fatigue, the frustration, and the sadness that came from constantly defending her character. By the early 1990s, Florence had retired from competitive running, eager to start a new chapter focused on family and creativity. She began designing athletic wear, mentoring young runners, and dreaming of a comeback, not to race again, but to redefine her image in the public eye. She wanted to be seen as more than just the world's fastest woman. She wanted to inspire young girls to believe that strength and femininity could coexist. But even in retirement, the shadows followed her. Sports commentators couldn't talk about her achievements without bringing up the controversy. Some even implied that her sudden retirement was a sign of guilt, a cruel and baseless assumption that hurt her deeply. Al Joyner became her shield. He defended her tirelessly, speaking at press conferences and interviews, making sure people knew who Florence truly was. To him, she wasn't just an Olympic icon. She was a wife, a mother, and a woman of unwavering integrity. He once said that Florence had a heart too pure for the world that refused to believe in her. And that statement, perhaps more than anything, summed up the silent war they were both fighting, the war between truth and perception. The couple's home became a refuge from the outside noise. They spent time with their daughter, Mary, focusing on family and faith. But behind their smiles, Florence struggled with something no one truly understood. The stress of constant scrutiny began affecting her health. Sleepless nights became common, and anxiety crept in. Still, she never complained publicly. To the world, she remained radiant, positive, and full of life. But those closest to her, especially Al, could see the wear. He worried constantly, urging her to take breaks, to focus on her well-being rather than her critics. Then came the night that changed everything. The night Al would later call the moment the world lost its light. Florence had gone to bed early, feeling exhausted after a long day. No one could have predicted that it would be the last time he'd ever see her alive. The next morning, the news broke, and the rumors that had haunted her life would soon follow her in death. September 21st, 1998, a day Al Joyner will never forget. The morning light slipped gently through the blinds of their California home, casting long golden streaks across the floor. But inside, the air was heavy and eerily still. When Al called out for Florence and she didn't answer, something inside him felt wrong. He walked into their bedroom, expecting to find her sleeping peacefully. But instead, he found the woman he loved more than anything lying motionless, her spirit gone long before the world even knew. She was just 38 years old. The shock was unbearable. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but there was nothing anyone could do. The news spread quickly. Florence Griffith Joyner dead at 38. A headline that stunned not only the sports world but the entire planet. In the days that followed, speculation replaced sympathy. The same people who had questioned her during life now turned her death into another storm of suspicion. The media demanded explanations. Conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Some suggesting foul play, others hinting at drugs or secret illnesses. But Al Joyner knew the truth. Florence had been suffering from epileptic seizures in the months leading up to her death, something few outside the family knew. According to the coroner's report, it was one of those seizures that had taken her life in her sleep. There were no traces of steroids, no performance enhancers, no hidden secrets. Just a tragic end to a life that had burned too bright for too short a time. Still, the rumors refused to rest. The whispers grew louder, almost cruel. Some journalists even implied that her perfect image was too good to be true, that something must have been hidden behind the beauty and the medals. But Al refused to let them tarnish her name. He stood before cameras, voice shaking but steady, saying, "My wife was clean. She was. Pure, she was real. And she was taken from this world too soon." His words silenced some, but others continued to pry, turning their grief into tabloid fuel. Florence's funeral became both a celebration and a heartbreak. Friends, family, and fans gathered under the California sun to say goodbye to a legend. She was laid to rest in a gleaming white casket, her husband holding their young daughter tightly as he whispered a promise that he would keep Florence's legacy alive no matter what it took. In the months that followed, Al struggled to find his footing. Nights were the hardest. He'd wake up, still expecting to hear Florence humming softly or talking about her next big idea. The silence was unbearable, but instead of letting grief consume him, he began working on a mission to tell the world who Florence Griffith Joyner really was. He gave interviews, spoke at athletic events, and visited schools, teaching young athletes that true greatness comes not from shortcuts but from heart, discipline, and faith. He described Florence as the kind of person who made everyone around her believe they could be extraordinary. Still, behind every speech was a pain he couldn't erase. Losing Florence wasn't just losing a wife, it was losing a best friend, a soulmate, and a dream they had built together. Even years later, every time he watched the Olympics and saw runners speeding down the track, Al couldn't help but picture Florence, her flowing hair, her radiant smile, and that powerful stride that once stunned the world. But what haunted him most wasn't just her death. It was the feeling that people never truly knew her. And that's what made him finally decide years later to break his silence. To reveal what he had kept inside, not out of anger, but out of love. Because for Al Joyner, the truth about Florence wasn't about defending her legacy anymore. It was about reminding the world that beneath the headlines and rumors was a woman who lived, loved, and gave everything she had until the very end. For years, Al Joyner stayed silent about the pain that haunted him. Not because he wanted to hide the truth, but because speaking about Florence always reopened the wound. Every anniversary of her passing brought back memories of laughter, dreams, and that brilliant smile that could light up a stadium. Yet the world still buzzed with half-truths and cruel speculations about how the fastest woman alive could have left so soon. But as he grew older, Al realized something. Silence had only given room for lies to grow. The world had mourned Florence Griffith Joyner, but few truly understood her heart, her struggles, or her truth. And so he began to speak, calmly, firmly, and with all the love a husband could carry. In an emotional interview years later, Al finally confirmed what had long been whispered and misinterpreted. The rumors weren't about cheating, scandal, or performance drugs. The truth was much simpler and much sadder. Florence had been hiding how deeply exhausted she was. Years of training, media pressure, and public scrutiny had taken a heavy toll on her health. Behind her flawless beauty and seemingly endless energy, she was silently fighting fatigue, anxiety, and stress that few people ever saw. She wasn't superhuman, Al admitted softly. She was just human, a woman who gave everything she had to make others believe in greatness. But the world expected too much from her. He explained that the seizures that eventually took her life had started subtly, faint spells at first, then deeper ones that left her drained. Doctors were monitoring her condition, but she refused to let it define her. Florence didn't want to be seen as fragile. She wanted to be remembered for her fire, not her pain. That's why Al chose for many years to protect her privacy. But now, as he spoke, he wanted people to understand that her passing wasn't some mystery wrapped in scandal. It was a tragedy born of relentless pressure, human fragility, and a life lived at full speed. He also revealed that one of Florence's final wishes was that their daughter, Mary, would grow up knowing her mother's real story, not the one the media told, but the one built on integrity, resilience, and love. Mary Joyner would go on to follow in her mother's footsteps, both as an athlete and a performer, carrying her legacy into a new generation. Al's voice trembled when he recalled the last night they spent together. She was happy, he said. We talked about the future, about how she wanted to inspire young girls to chase their dreams without fear. That's the Florence I remember. Not the world's fastest woman, but the world's most beautiful soul. In that moment, his words cut through decades of speculation. The truth was finally out, not as a revelation of scandal, but as a declaration of love. Florence Griffith Joyner wasn't a myth or a controversy. She was a woman who ran her race, in life and in spirit, with unmatched courage. Today, more than 2 decades after her passing, her legacy still burns bright. Her records remain untouched. Her style, bold, fearless, unapologetic, continues to inspire generations. And through Al's words, the world finally understands that Florence's story isn't about mystery or tragedy. It's about grace, strength, and the cost of being extraordinary in a world that rarely understands extraordinary people. As Al Joyner looked back on their life together, he said something that still echoes in every heart that remembers her. Flojo wasn't just fast. She was free, and that's how I'll always remember her. With that, the man who once shared a home, a dream, and a destiny with Florence Griffith Joyner finally found peace. Not because he stopped missing her, but because he finally told her story the way she would have wanted it told, with love, honesty, and truth.